Welcome to the Cricket8 podcast. Jarrod Kimber here with the Rooster, Rob Barron. We're going to be going through the IPL auction in a little while, but let's just start with the test match. In fact, let me read you something, Rob, that I think that you will like. So far in 2024, Australia have beaten New Zealand, who beat India, who beat England, who beat Sri Lanka, who beat New Zealand, who beat South Africa, who beat Bangladesh, who beat Pakistan, who beat England. If the two series are going the way that they are, so the West Indies and India win, it would be India beat Australia, who beat New Zealand, who beat India, who beat England, who beat Sri Lanka, who beat New Zealand, who beat South Africa, who beat the West Indies, who beat Bangladesh, who beat Pakistan, who beat England.
Isn't cricket great?
This is the craziest year of Test cricket by like a factor of like 1,000,000%. Like I don't even know how to wrap my head around what we have seen this year.
Yeah, lay the draw, back the outsider, go to bed. That's it. But back all the correct scores of the nonsense for the outsider. Expect the unexpected. This can be explained, and we'll try and explain it in a minute. But isn't Test cricket brilliant? That's the take home for me. It's a fantastic watch. Like all of those series have had some amazing stuff in it. The India one the other day was unbelievable, and you're getting, from a betting point of view, you're getting both teams matched at 10-1. By the middle of day two, half the time, and then the draw can't happen. And lots of people think the draw can happen in some of these. It's really funny. But Test cricket is awesome. Anyone can beat anyone because nobody has a proper technique for batting in Test matches anymore. That's what it boils down to for me.
I also think that the wobble ball has made everything, and Indian pitches as well, but I think the wobble ball and Indian pitches have made everything just so much more random that the scores are going to be lower. As you said, the techniques have changed, so people are going to score quicker, so it's just upping the volatility in every single direction. And it's out there. I want to put this to you. So India started that game, I reckon, at about 4:20, right?
Yeah.
I think that was right. They started at 4:20. Let's say you thought market had that a little bit wrong. You could probably have made a case for India to be about 260 to 280. So still outsiders, but very much in the game at that point, right? Even if you had them as that optimistic, the chances are that with Gill and Rohit and Hardik and Shami and Kuldeep and I don't know, whoever
Ashwin and Jadeja.
Ashwin and Jadeja, right? Those are the other two I forgot. With all those out of the side, the idea that India would win by 295 runs and beat their own record against Australia, which was made against World Series cricket, was basically made against like my dad's mates, right? Like playing for Australia at that point. Compared to then going up against, Australia's biggest wicket-taking quartet of all time, and Steve Smith, and and Travis Head, and all these guys. It's an incredible upset. But when you look at the year that we have had, it's like a small flicker, right? Compared to all the other nonsense. Like, how do you compare it to Ollie Pope winning a test match in India, or Shamar Joseph winning a test match in Australia, or Bangladesh whitewashing Pakistan, right? Or Pakistan coming back from nowhere against England, or that test match where England came back against Pakistan, or the test match where India won a game in 8 minutes against Bangladesh. And I haven't actually mentioned New Zealand beating India and all
the
that.
last series,
the most crazy year, like in every way you go. It really has been. I wonder how many people have been converted to Test cricket fans, like in the last 12 months, just through the sheer weirdness.
Yeah, the other formats have played their part, but Test cricket is alive and very much kicking, and it's just really fun because the days have gone where anybody plays for the draw. We've mentioned this. I mean,
lay the draw. Should we get lay the draw tattoos on our forehead?
Definitely.
I've never actually laid the draw in a game.
I thought you were going to say, I've never actually got a tattoo on my forehead. I thought you were going to say.
There was one game where I bet against the draw, and it was Ranchi in India years ago when I was trying to see why everyone was talking about lay the draw, and that game actually was a draw. So the one time I did it, there wasn't a result. But it really is crazy. Why did India win this game, Rob Barron?
I do think the way the game worked out, they got the better of the conditions. A lot of people have said that, but we thought that was coming. Like, to be fair, having got the last one where I gave New Zealand very little chance, quite wrong. We got this one pretty right with our discussions before the game and during the game. Like, I didn't have a hard time with my betting on this one. I'm one of the few people that discusses betting where I'm actually quite happy to talk about all the times I get it wrong. But this one went very well. And it's because, as we said before, you're not a rubbish team because you've just lost.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't happen overnight. And if you actually pick Australia apart, the thing that markets get wrong and the thing that humans get wrong a lot is they look at names and then they go, well, he's good, he's good, he's good, he's good, then therefore they're good. And you actually crack down into it. And we did this before the game, so it's not after timing. You go, well, Kawaja's a million years old and his eyes are definitely getting steadily worse. And he's always a walking wicket his first 20 balls anyway. And now he's got to face Bumrah, so that's basically impossible.
And Siraj, who he doesn't seem to like.
Yeah, that's true. McSweeney is somebody who looks good against Wes Agar and, Sutherland and all those jokers that roll their arms over in the big bash and gets his 25 off 25 every time. Fine. This is quite a big step up.
And he's batting out of position. Massively out of position.
Yeah, of course. Labuschagne has taken the direct copying of everything Smith does far too seriously by getting shit at the same time as Smith did. His innings were hilarious, like really, really funny. That 2 off 52 when he was out twice before, and then he reviews it when it's hitting the bottom and middle, like awesome. I love that so much. I love Marnus's contributions, and he's now bowling a different type of bowling than the one that he's okay at. It's really fun. Love him. Weirdo. And then Smith he's getting LBW a lot now because everybody thought the way he batted he would just get LBW all the time, but his eyes were so good that he never got out LBW. But now his eyes aren't so good, so he's a wicket. Head's amazing, but head is high vol. Marsh not as amazing, also high vol. Carey dug in a bit, and then you look at the bowlers and you go, well, they are all getting older. Hazelwood got a very spicy pitch and enjoyed it, which is why he went for a ludicrous price in the IPL auction, because he did well in a test match on a spicy pitch, which has nothing to do with the IPL.
No, what are you talking about? Hazelwood should have gone for far more than he did in that.
Right, we'll discuss your nonsense in a minute. But you boiled it down and you go, actually, there wasn't much between the teams. I think the market is much more realistic for this next one. Australia should be slight favourites because they're at home.
And it's pink ball.
Yeah, and basically, if you thought that, we all said during day one that this is going to flatten out day two. This is going to be much better to bat on day two of this first test match. And it wasn't a big surprise that it was. It was a big surprise that they batted for the whole day without losing a wicket. Jaiswal is generational talent. He's so good. But this next one, it's going to be, one of these teams will probably annihilate the other one. Reminds me of England-Australia series gone by, where England win a couple by an innings and then Australia absolutely Mitchell Johnson does. It's probably going to happen in this one, because if you get that pink ball at the right time, you can get the flurry, and Australia seem to be quite good at doing that, of optimizing their results when they've got conditions in their favour. Let's see what happens. But it could be. But if you've got Bumrah tearing in when the lights are just coming on, how on earth do you face that with the way he's bowling at the moment? He's averaging under 20, Jarrod. First bowler to do that. He's got 180 wickets. He's averaging under 20. First bowler since Barnes?
Yeah.
Over 100 years ago. Like, you probably only caught the tail end of Barnes's career.
Yeah, I was a big fan.
but he's not. I've mentioned Bumrah quite a few times. It's a joke how much better he is than everybody else in all formats. And the other guys are doing enough. Like, Siraj supported him very, very competently in that. And I was surprised at how good Harshit was as well. And once again, like last time, India do seem to have a very good way about them playing in Australia. Everyone chipped in and did bits. Kohli, write off great players at your peril. Showed that he can still do it. But Reddy did well. Like, he got his 40 was massive in the first innings. No one's spoken about that. He got 40 runs when they got 150. He got their first innings lead, basically.
Yeah.
How did Australia lose? I don't think they were complacent. I think a lot of them are getting on a bit, and they had to face Bumrah when the pitch was a bit spicy. I think they could have dug in more. I think, Marnus aside.
I think Bumrah bowled a better length than their bowlers did. And if in a normal test match, that wouldn't have mattered, because in a normal test match, that wicket would have probably died down a little bit on day one. And so even if the other teams bowled slightly better, it would have come out. Maybe Australia would have made 180, say, right? Or even if Alex Carey didn't go out first ball to Bumrah on day 2, and Alex Carey and Mitchell Starc probably get Australia up to close to par or whatever at that point, or even more, the way that Starc was batting at that point. And then it's a completely different conversation, right? But the truth is that the Indian bowlers Bumrah came out, took one look at what Australia had done, and went, actually, I think I can bowl Fuller on here, and it'll be even more dangerous. And he was completely right. I think the Indian backup seam has overperformed. I think that's probably fair to say. And the conditions were slightly in India's favour. Those are two things that might not follow all the way through the series. But when you look at it, also the Australian top 3, and I'm going to take Smith out of it because I actually think Smith looked fine in the second innings. So I'm not too worried about his batting. First ball duck, I'm not willing to say his eyes are completely gone based on a first ball duck to just
Bumrah. Again, right off great cricketers at your peril.
Yeah. But the top 3, it's like I've started to ask the question, Rob, of whether Australia can win the series without a top 3, right? Because I felt like Kawaj is on his way out. I still think he's a really good player, and I hope that he comes good, and that's fine. McSweeney, I can't say how McSweeney's going to make any runs, especially if Mohammad Shami comes back as well. And he's got, Siraj, Shami, and Bumrah bowling to him. And Marnus needs a break. Marnus needs to go fishing. He needs to learn quilting, right? Is quilting a thing? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. He needs to learn quilting. He needs to go off and go on an event. He needs to be like Kane and just walk the earth, right? Get into shenanigans and try and help people out with his energy and everything, just for a couple of weeks, because I don't think he's going to make runs in the next test match. And then you say to him, we'll come back for the 3rd test or the 4th test, and we'll see how we go from there. But Hazelwood was really good in that first innings. Starc had incredible rhythm. Didn't take a lot of wickets, but had incredible rhythm. Cummins did not bowl particularly well in this test match at any stage. So there are things that can improve for Australia as well. But the difference is India can actually improve their lineup, and Australia cannot. Like, this is more or less what they're going to have to go with.
They had basically 6 first-teamers out in that first test, India. Yep. I think the point about Bumrah that Cummins couldn't do is Bumrah, part of his genius is that he can identify the length he should bowl in about 5 seconds. And he's like, okay, I'll bowl it here. And his natural length is one thing, and we were talking during the New Zealand series about sometimes bowlers get a pitch that they just love, and then they're really good on it, and they're crap everywhere else. Ajaz is a prime example of that. He's got Wankhede up his sleeve and nothing else. Santner got when he wanted. It's same thing with a lot of fast bowlers, but Bumrah is so good that he goes, okay, let me just work it out. Yep, this is where I'm going to bowl. Now you're dead. And if the pitch has got something in it, he'll find it. And not many bowlers can do that, which is why he's top of the shop. But yeah, Australia probably won't change anything because they're anti-change. So and I agree. A lot of the times, like one match doesn't change a great deal. Have another go. Like if McSweeney's the guy, we spoke about the openers before. Don't know who I would open with. It's a very difficult one. Renshaw fell off a cliff. Can't go Harris. Like, who are you going for? Yeah. But we had all these questions about India before the last test, and they bossed it. They just went, all right then, KL, I guess. And look at the India team on paper, and you read through that. Like Padikkal is basically, he dug in second innings, but he wouldn't be a guy you think brilliant.
He looks like
3.
in Australia, he's going to open the face and run every ball to 3rd slip.
Yeah. I mean, he had one of the most stinking IPLs of anyone ever last time. Don't know about it, but you go, right, our top 3 doesn't have Rohit and Gill in it, and we're still really good. Yeah. I mean, that's a proper cricket team. I
think it tells you everything at the moment that, like, there's no Australian cricket fan who's like, we wouldn't take KL automatically. Like, they wouldn't like, he would still be like, oh, he's so enigmatic and whatever, but he would just automatically be in this lineup in whichever position that you wanted him to bat in. I think the best bet probably is dropping Marnus and bringing in someone like Renshaw to bat at number 3 and just having 3 openers, and then hoping that between those 3 openers, they get to a situation where Smith, Head, Marsh, and Carey come in when the score's 60 rather than 18 or 9 or 4, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you can do that, I think that's maybe an interesting one. Renshaw, I know he's in bad form this year, but he actually had been. He probably was due a call up for Australia a couple of years back and missed out because Khawaja and Warner were doing so well. And you know, Harrison Bancroft, it's probably moved on from those sorts of guys. I don't think if you're going to go McSweeney, I don't think you can throw Constance in as well. Like I don't think you can double up with those sorts of guys. But yeah, it's absolute chaos. But the thing is, both of us, it's a bit like the New Zealand tests, right? Where New Zealand win that first test, and going into that second test, India's still favourite, and they should be favourite. And Australia should still be favourite coming into this next test match, being that it's Adelaide, being that it's day night. I think I might feel slightly different if this was Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane. But being that it's Adelaide for the day-night test and the way they have played there, like, okay, at the moment, you might say there's only 2 Australian bowlers that look in form, but Hazelwood and Stark might be able to get enough wickets between them, looking at their, looking at the way that they're both bowling and the conditions of the pink ball and how Stark grows, an extra 8 inches when he has to bowl with a pink ball and everything else. But it's a fascinating thing. We've talked about Jaiswal a million times, but that was I was so impressed with the fact that in the first innings, the flaw that I thought would cause him issues in Australia, that outside off stump line, completely did him over. And in the second innings, I expected him to leave the ball, and he's like, no, I'm just not going to push at the ball. Like I'm going to wait for bad balls, and if there aren't bad balls, I'm just going to bat normally. We talk about modern players who attack too much and everything else. He showed that they still have the ability to play correctly. That was my favorite thing about this test match. On day one, we were told no players could defend anymore. The next day, we saw Mitchell Stark, KL Rahul, and Jaiswal defend, which it just tells you how much conditions play a part in the way that we go nuts. But I thought Jaiswal was absolutely incredible. But Virat making runs is huge, right? Because that really does change. I think Australia were probably banking on him having another poor series so that they could keep themselves in. Because if he has a semi-Virat series, they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. He's done it here before. He loves the big occasion. He loves it when the spotlight is on him and he gets written off. But he is a great player, as is Steve Smith. And those guys, when you say, "Oh, he's definitely gone," the amount of times those guys come back and go, "Well, not quite yet. I've still got plenty to offer." I mean, he
also
got the most
what
runs
age
in the IPL
does
this year.
is it robs you of your consistency, but it doesn't rob you of your peaks. So if you go through, like we're seeing with Dhoni, like Dhoni isn't the player that he used to be, but we know that in a particular game, Dhoni can still hit that level, right? We saw it, Glenn McGrath was a perfect example of this towards the end of his career, where it was like, there were some games you were like, God, he's bowling about 125 Ks and players are walking down the wicket to him. And then the next game, he'll have like 6 for 40 again. And you're like, oh, okay, he's still Glenn McGrath. It's just that the game has changed a little bit around them. And I think with Smith and Kohli, we could see that. If I offered you, what are the odds for the next test? Do you know?
Okay, I'll look now. I'll tell you what. While I'm looking, the crazy price. So you can make arguments about that the pre-price was wrong, and whatever else.
Yeah.
But when we'd had the first day, and India weren't favourites after the first day, that was mental. And we said it very loudly and backed it up with money at the time. That was absolutely mental that India were second favourites after that first day. The fact that Carey immediately nicked off to Bumrah was a huge joy after. But that
so they were about evens, weren't they, going into day 2? And I went on my show and just said, look, this is the best bet I've ever seen because the odds here are just absolutely ridiculous. And also the fact that Stark batted forever, but never actually really changed the odds that much because he batted so slow and went about it. But if you weren't backing India at I got on at about 460 after Bumrah's second wicket, I want to say.
Okay.
If you weren't backing India at that stage, the way he was bowling, like what? Anyway, India got to 11s in that game, and as you said,
right, yeah,
Australia
I think
obviously got a lot more. They
were 2.14, I think, going into that day. Anyway, that for this one, it's basically 1.8 Australia, 2.8 India, 10-1 the draw, which won't happen unless it rains for 5 days. So, I mean, that's a bit further between the teams than I would have but a lot of it, the reason why I'm not involved right now, a lot of it is down to when you actually bat and bowl in this one. As with every pink ball test match, it's not necessarily the best team will win. Like quite often these pink ballers, which Australia are very good at home, are decided by who happens to bat when the clouds are there, or when it's getting dark. conditions can change a lot. But on paper, with the fact that India can bring back players who make their team stronger, there's nothing in between these two. It's just Australia have home advantage.
2.86 seems like, if you knew nothing about it, they've just won the last game, 2.86. And as you said, the draws are what, about 10s, right?
Yeah.
I think the average runs per game in a day-night test is about 24 runs per wicket. The chances of it being washed out seems to me, and you don't get a lot of bad light in day-night games as well, Rob.
That's true.
The chances of it being washed out at a draw seem pretty low. So if you just wanted to, seems like one that might be a decent one to lay the draw.
Yeah, just do that every time. Although, to be fair to the market, in the first test, the draw started at 20, and you don't see that very often.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I found that a bit interesting because this pitch should be starting at about the same, I would have thought. I'm not sure why.
It must be weather. I think it's raining in Adelaide right now.
Okay. That makes a bit more sense.
I know we've got a while. There's a tour game first.
Yeah, there's a game in Canberra first.
But yeah, they've got a while. It won't be a draw unless it rains for 4.5 days because teams don't do that anymore. I mean, even at North Sound, where half of the most recent games have been a draw, why haven't we spoken about Bangladesh declaring yet? They're 185 runs behind, and they declared 9 down. Somebody tell me why that happened.
Was that conditions based? Because I wasn't watching that game. No?
No, it was stupidity based. The only thing the commentators, and also the market didn't know, because nobody thought it was going to happen. So sometimes the market you just suddenly see on Betfair it's all gone, the innings runs line and whatever. But basically, whoever the commentator was said, we think they might have declared, and then all the money just disappeared out of the market. Everyone was like, oh, wow, really? And I was like, that can't be true. That's not happened. And because Bangladesh had to try and take time out of the game, and even if you're injured, you just walk out there with your bloody plaster cast on, and you go, okay, we'll face one more. That's 10 minutes gone. It's 2 overs out of the game. Don't know. The commentators, all they could guess was they didn't want to get bounced on that pitch. They didn't want to get bounced and injure the bowlers. Like, shut up. I will never understand that declaration. It's absolute lunacy. But really funny, and that's what Test cricket is giving us right now. Relentless fun.
Okay. No, we'll come up with Sandkelp's super chat in a moment, but we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and we'll be talking about the IPL auction. Remember to support us by subscribing and sharing, but also signing up at Cricket8.com, where live scorecards cover 8,000 matches a year with advanced visual details that tell you who is actually in front in the game. All right, Cricket 8 podcast here. Jarrod Kimber, Rob Barron. We've covered the test, so let's move on now to the IPL auction. I'm just going to ask you a couple of basic questions to begin with, and now I've lost my questions. Who are your best buys? And let's start with the best buys who are big.
Well, I thought, in terms of names rather than price, I thought Maxwell's price was pretty cheap at 4.2 crore when you consider. I think there are people I'll talk about later that I think are great and no IPL teams do. That's different. But I thought in terms of price, I thought Maxwell, despite having a Hall of Fame stinker last season, doesn't make him crap at cricket. And
he's gone at almost half the price of David Miller, right?
Yeah.
And I think that at this stage in their career, if you would probably rather have Maxwell in your team than Miller, I would have thought. Even though Miller's a left-hander, like I get it, but
this is the fun game. Like, he went for the same price as him. He went for the same price as they paid for that. And obviously, being Indian basically means you're worth double, doesn't it? It's basically you double.
Yeah, well, it depends. But yes, if you're a star Indian, it's worth double. If you're a small-town Indian, you get 30 lakh. But yes.
And if you're related to Sachin Tendulkar, you get a game even if you can't play cricket.
I was wondering, I mean, what was his price? I didn't even see what he went for.
I think he was 30 lakhs again. He was like, if you want me to be affiliated with your team, then you have to give my son a job. And that's that.
30 lakhs is fine for Sachin Tendulkar, if we're being honest. Like, he's a left-arm seamer. Maybe he develops half a yard at one stage. He's a left-arm bowler. He bowls with his left arm.
I loved it last time. They let him bowl 1 over at the start. And they were like, all right, we'll have 1 over for 6, but you better not bring him back on because he's going for 50. And they kind of put him away again. Who are the best buys? I think I thought in terms of the cash that was paid, rather than who I think the best players are.
Yes.
I think I've never said this about Sam Curran. I've always rated Sam Curran much. His price is cheap, right? He went for like 10 times that last time, whatever it was.
He went for around 2 crores. I think Sam Curran and Mitch Marsh and Tig Sharna, they were the 3 overseas players where I was like, this is way too low. Like with Tig Sharna, you get a spinner who can bowl all the way through the innings. I know he's not a batter, but he can actually hold the bat and so whack them occasionally.
His batting has improved a lot, Tig Sharna.
Massively. I mean, he's not an all-rounder, and he's not, but he's a bowler who can occasionally get you runs at the end. You've got Mitch Marsh, Mitch Marsh has been in the IPL since he's an infant, and he's never made a single run. And I get not paying him, but I also think he's probably due just one season where he does really well.
I think Marsh's price is okay given his constant failures in the tournament. But when you've got Curran going for basically last year, or the IPL just gone, Punjab bet the farm on Curran, and we were like, what the hell are they doing? We're making him captain. We're going to open with him, bat him 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and he's going to open the bowling, bowl in the middle, and bowl at the death. It's like you can't do all that stuff with one person. Maybe he is a lovely guy, maybe he's really clever and all that, but it's way too much for him right then. And he'd just been off the back of an amazing performance for England in the World Cup as a death bowler, and no one understands why that happened. He just got good at death bowling because no one else was fit for about a month, and he's never been any good at it before or since. But considering like Curran has lots of skills, 2.4 is very cheap. These are on my good buy list, right? KL 14.
Yeah, I mean, both of us have issues with the way he plays, but he's gone for too low.
He was top run scorer 3 years ago in the IPL at 130 strike rate. If he's in the right, if he's the anchor that can go on at the end, he fits quite well for Delhi, I think. I think that is a good buy. Considering that Parag was retained for exactly the same price, that is absurd. And considering that Venki, we'll come to the shockers in a minute, and we love Venki, 10 crores more than KL, is he? He's a Stubbs more than KL, is he? No, he's not. So Stubbs 10, I actually think that's quite good. I think Stubbs is somebody that when I first saw him, I thought he's flat track bully. But he has come on more than anyone with the bat, more than anyone I've seen in the last 2 years.
I don't know if I would have wanted to pay him a lot more, but I think 10 is a good buy for him when you consider that, as I said before, David Miller is a lot older and not the player that Stubbs currently looks like, and he's gone for what, 7.5. I think. For me, Stubbs and Salt, I'd be pretty happy with paying them around 10 or 12, and that's what they both went for. Like, I would have considered those massive wins if I was working for those teams.
Yeah, I think on the Indian guys who I thought were very cheap, Sandeep for 4 for Rajasthan because he got really, really good. Sandeep Sharma, the bowler.
He got retained, didn't he, under the uncapped law? And I hope he's getting some money under the table because, my God, he's worth more than 4 crore.
Because that's a really good bit of business. Yep. I thought Ashutosh, considering what he did when he came, I love him, obviously, but
what did Ashutosh go for in the end?
3.8.
You sent me 3.8?
Yeah, that's cheap compared to what some people went for.
Well, Jitesh Sharma went for 11.
Yeah, there you go.
And I don't really get that buy at all. I'm not.
Jitesh is somebody that he had a great first year, but he's quite old. He had a great first year, a less good second year. He isn't somebody that Ashutosh can hit 4 sixes in a row from a standing start, right? And that is the guy that you want as your Indian. So most teams have space for basically a random Indian bat at number 7, basically. And Ashutosh is the best one of those. And he has a very, like Shashank's really, really good. They played in the same team last time. But Ashutosh can just gun it, and he is a consistent 6 hitter, and that is a great thing to have. I thought he was cheap.
Can I give you another one that I think is a really good buy? Deshpande.
He's on my list. I mean, we can't talk enough about this man.
How is he 6.5 crore when there are other players, other bowlers getting paid a lot more than him that aren't doing what he's been doing? Am I wrong? I know he's 29. If he was 31 or 32, I'd be like 6.5. He's only had one really great season. I get it. But it's like, surely you just go with it. It's a great pickup. It's Rajasthan that got him, isn't it?
Deshpande.
Yeah, Rajasthan.
Where is he on my list? Is he Raj? Yeah, I thought Rajasthan did quite well on the good buys. They've had one or two bad ones. But overall, I think Hasaranga is really good at T20s. I think there's got to be a way you fit him into your team. You know, when somebody like, I know he's Indian, but someone like Chahal is 18 crore for Punjab, right? He cannot bat, he cannot field, and he didn't do a very good job this year.
With Saurabh Samani, and we were like, every year, most of us have said he's underpaid. And it's like the one year when it looks like he's slipped, everyone's like, no, this is the year we're going to give him the cash, right? Last year, he couldn't control the economy rate at all. So now, get the bag, everyone. It's Chahal's time. Like, what are we talking about?
I was quite heavy on Chahal last year in terms of betting him to be top wicket taker for stuff, because I thought they were going to death load him a lot, which they kind of did. But he was wicket hunting so much, you know, tossing it up, trying to get caught long ons, that he kept getting hit for six. And he didn't really change that. And he's really good, but he's not 18. When Hasaranga, who is a three-dimensional cricketer, Chahal can do one thing, and when his one thing is bad, he is totally useless to your team. You have to hide him in the field, and he can't bat. Hasaranga has played in a franchise tournament in his own country where he was top wicket taker and top run scorer. Like, he is an absolute gun.
Yeah, I think part of the reason he hasn't gone for more money is because I know he's bowled well in one season and struggled in the other, but I think part of the reason is his batting has never translated to, well, it hasn't translated enough to international cricket, let alone to the IPL as well. So I think I can get that. There's a couple of small little steals that I like too. Kumar Kartikeya, Rajasthan Royals. He's gone for the same price that Arjun Tendulkar has gone for, and I think he's a really interesting backup spinner that I certainly would have paid a little bit more for. Why do you not think Josh Hazlewood's worth 12.5 crore when so all the frontline seamers have gone for essentially between 8.5 crore and 13.5 crore, right? And there's a couple in there that I disagree with, and there's a couple in there that I would pay more for. But Josh Hazlewood has been unplayable in white ball cricket for a couple of years now and played really well when he was in the IPL.
Yeah, I thought that Hazlewood is somebody like, what is he, 12.5? I think the fact that the fact that RCB paid the 12.5 tells you that it's too much, right? I don't think he's not in my shocking buys list, but he's in terms of value. I think he's bad because he's also got a long Australian summer ahead of him where he's got to bowl a lot. I think if he didn't get 4 for against India in the first test on a spicy pitch, he'd have gone for 9, something like that. I think RCB, as they love to do, have overpaid.
I'll just say this.
I don't think he's bad at cricket.
He, in T20 cricket in the last couple of years, so he hasn't played a lot of IPL of recent times, but in T20 cricket in the last couple of years, in 2021, that's actually too far back. I'll get rid of that. Although that year he had a bowling average in international cricket of 16 and an economy of 6.8. 2022, he had a bowling average of 18 with economy of 7.5, and he's played 11 games this year of international T20 cricket. He's got bowling average of 33, so it's ballooned a little bit, but an economy of 6.81. He really is bowling on and I don't think he's got the credit he should have. And I know a lot of people have started to talk him up, but he's not far off the second best all-format bowler in the world at the moment. You know,
so he is for an overseas pick. He doesn't offer you anything else other than his bowling, and I just think they slightly overpaid for him. Prasid Krishna is somebody that I think went for an awful lot of money, considering he hasn't performed particularly well in the IPL over a reasonable sample, and he's not very good at staying fit either. That's a lot of cash.
You are with him. You are picking a young player who you are probably hoping gets a little bit stronger, stays a little bit fitter in the future, and is around for a while. But I get your point. There's a little bit of project in that. I found it very interesting that Hazlewood was the one that upset you when Stark went for almost the exact same price. And last year in the IPL, he went at 10.6 runs per over. I know he played well in the finals. KKR fans, we're aware that he did well at the end. And also, I would say he's looking really good. I think he's looking as good as he has in a while, but he's 34, 35, whatever he is at the moment. He hasn't been the white ball bowler that he was at his peak, which was one of the greatest of all time at his peak. He hasn't been that in a very long time, and he's getting paid the same. He's getting paid more than Rabada is. He's getting paid almost the same as Hazlewood and Bolt. Like, something's wrong with that for me.
Yeah. Stark got such a ludicrous amount of money last time, and we bagged him every single day of the IPL until the finals, saying that he went for whatever it was, 3 million quid. and he was an absolute drain until the finals. Again, great white ball bowler. He turned up and was like, okay, now I'm going to do it. I think that's why he got all the cash, because he turned up at the end. If he'd have done nothing, if he'd have continued his season's form to the last couple of games, we might have seen a Maxwell type price where they've gone, well, he's gone and we don't want him.
Yeah, I think I would have paid him 6 or 7 without hesitation, because he does give you a little bit of batting potentially as well, and if he does find rhythm, and he is in rhythm, that's fine. But I think paying him more than Rabada and paying him around the Hazelwood Bolt price, I'm like,
yeah, that's mad.
I mean, sorry. Why I like Hazelwood and why I like Bolt is because I know that they can both go in the death and everything else, but they're going to get you early wickets. And
now you have a chance of subbing somebody like him out as well. You have that of like, let's just have you bowl. If it's going well, you can bowl all 4 at the top if you're Hazelwood. If it's not going so well, you bowl 3 and then you're out. Cheers.
Yep.
We don't need your death over. Somebody else can bowl an over that will. Anyway, I thought for price, Umran Malik at 0.75 is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
because you've got somebody that can bowl at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and maybe you can get somebody to work with him, KKR it is, you can get someone to work with him to find out how to do it at T20s. Like, we know he's just a bowling machine set on fast in the slot during power plays, and he came back and did it and basically did the same thing again, and everyone's like, well, you can't write him off completely. Like, he's still young.
He can 3 years to develop
fast.
him. Yeah.
So that was really cheap. Can we talk about the shockers now?
Yeah, please.
Basically, anybody called, they just picked 2 names and they went, these are the names that we all need. And it doesn't matter what their first name is. We need Chahar and we need Ia, and just spend all the money on them, and that's it. Anybody that's watched Rahul Chahar in T20 cricket over the last 5 years should realise that he's getting worse every time, and it's falling off a cliff, and he is so easy to hit now compared to what he was when he turned up and found a length, or he used to bowl a few darts, and he doesn't look the business. His batting, everyone says it's good, but it isn't. For him to go for 3.2 crore, the Rahul Chahar, is mad, but the other Chahar that's gone for bundles, way more than him. Why has that happened? Because he's injured. When he came back last time, it was like, well, he's a guy that
you're talking about Deepak Chahar.
Yeah. Why has he gone for so much?
What did he go for?
Like 10? I don't know how much it is. No, he went 9.25 to Mumbai. That's loads. 9.25. That's absolutely loads.
Yeah. It does seem. I suppose if you look at Avesh Khan, Prasidh Krishna, like, there's a lot of those guys. That's why a lot of people were really upset about the Mohammad Shami pick. And I was like, if you get 1 year out of Mohammad Shami, I think that's kind of worth it.
So how is Sandeep Sharma 4?
Well, I mean, but
I'd much rather have Harshal.
Part of that is the auction, though, isn't it? If you're not in the auction, I think if Sandeep Sharma goes in the auction, he's not going for 4.
Would you rather have Harshal in your team? Ignore money, Harshal or Deepak?
I would rather have, if they're fit, I would rather have Deepak.
Yeah, but you're not allowed if they're fit. You know how fit they are.
Based on that, no. So it's probably Harshal, isn't it?
And Harshal went for 8.
Yeah.
And Deshpande went for 6.5, and Deshpande's got 5 years on it.
We certainly would have taken Deshpande before the other.
So I thought those were the bad ones. Obviously, both the ears is terrible business. We do love Venki. Shreyas here, 27 crore. Come on.
No, Shreyas, there's no defense of that, really, because you're paying about 15 crore for his captaincy on my metrics, right? And I'm not saying he's a bad captain. And I like the idea of going after an Indian captain. I just think once you get over 20, you must think to yourself, are we sure this is the guy that we want to spend? What's that? He's getting 20% of the salary cap. No, it's more than 20%, isn't it?
It's just an absolute farce. It's a fiasco. He's not that good.
Venki, I think you can make some claims with Venki that he's so versatile and he's so willing to play for the team in almost any situation. Can bat 1 to 6 and everything else. You wouldn't factor his bowling in, but he's not a nothing on bowling. Like you can get 8 to 12 overs out of him throughout the year and everything else. It's still an overpay, but I think you can work your way around that. I think with Shreyas, you are literally saying, like, what's the most optimistic thing with Shreyas? You're probably saying he was 15 crore batter. So you're still looking at a lot of money for a captaincy there, which we've seen before. I think Pat Cummins got paid a bunch for captaincy. So he's not the first player to get paid a bunch for captaincy, but it seems like a bit of a stretch to me.
Yeah, the other one, other than the 2 years, which is terrible, in my terrible column, is Boovy, because, again, RCB,
I will not have
so
Boovy slander on this podcast, sir.
10.75, mate. 10.75 for
Worth
an
every
old
friggin'
injured
penny.
man. Okay. Two baffling ones that we must discuss is that Gazamfar, sure, potential. He's 18.
Yep.
Maybe 19. I watched him in that Bangladesh series, and I watched the six for, and I loved it. It was really good. But in the second game, bear in mind that's a different format. In the second game, they worked him out a bit, and he got 2. And in the third game, they worked him out a lot, and he got none. Right? That's a 3-game sample size against the Bangladesh team that aren't the best. And you go, well, I think somebody just watched that six for and thought we have to have him. And luckily for him, 2 teams thought that. And for him to go for 4.8 to Mumbai are another one that make consistent, catastrophically bad decisions. That's a hell of a lot of cash, 4.8 crore when Hasaranga's going for 5.
I think it's absurd. A lot of. So he got picked up for nothing last time, didn't he? Because it might have even been a replacement for someone last time, and clearly I think he must have trialed with a few IPL teams, and I've been hearing about him for a while. And I watched that Bangladesh series, and I was exactly with you. I think it might have been you who told. It might have been me who told you this. Me and Jake were talking about it in our group, saying I think they might have worked out how to play him here. I think he's worth it as a player in the IPL. I really do. I don't know how you justify paying him double Adam Zampa's rate at the moment.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, just based on Adam Zampa's bowling really well, and neither of them are going to start, right? You're not going to start.
He did get a 30 or 15 recently, I noticed, but
yeah,
you're basing it on cricket that he's played in a different format. The other one that we must discuss is the fact that a 13-year-old child is being paid quite a lot of money to play in the IPL.
We have a super chat about that. What are your thoughts on that? It feels like the footballification of cricket.
So
because I find it impossible to think he's going to play this year.
Right. So it is impossible that he plays this year, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility to say he may never play an IPL game.
Yes.
And I spoke to Jack Hope today. How he said he's more likely to never play in the IPL than he is to be as good as Gale. Right? That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's not gone for 50 quid, like he's gone for proper cash, and it's not that advantageous as a franchise. Let's say he is Sachin too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his early numbers suggest that he might be, but what was the name of the guy that opened the batting with Sachin in the school games and got the 300s? Like, he fell off pretty quick.
Yeah.
The fact that you're good at 13 often means that you're just miles better than all the other 13-year-olds. It doesn't usually translate into adult cricket. However, he got a 58 ball 100 in the under-19s and he's like his first go, I think. And he's got like the 300 playing for an under, like a proper age group side. Like, he can clearly bat, right? I've not seen him play, can't comment on that. But firstly, it's a bit weird, like a 13-year-old. Like, how much good does it do a 13-year-old being around an IPL franchise? He has to be looked after very well when he's around some people at the end of their careers that are just there for a jolly up. Some people that are there to what are they going to do to him in the nets? Like, it's weird, right? He's 13 years old. He's not 16. He's 13 years old. That's really young. So I hope he's looked after properly. It doesn't fill me with joy that we've got 13-year-old kids knocking around IPL franchises. However, can you make a case for a franchise paying for him now? Is it that good to have somebody in under your? Let's say he's with a franchise. Is it that good to have him now? Does that mean you're way more likely to get him when he's 25? Because his peak's not coming, Jarrod, until 2040. 2040 is when he's going to peak.
So this is the interesting thing I have. So you spend 3 years developing him and you bring him along. I am assuming he's not going to play in the next 3 years. If he plays in the next 3 years, 1 crore is absolutely fine, right? And then they have a look at him and they can make a decision from then on in. If he doesn't play in the next 3 years and he isn't close to being ready in the next 3 years, can you retain him at that stage. You've developed him, you've got him ready, and someone else might use him. It's different with a football academy, right? Like if you're a football academy and you sign someone up to play for your team,
Exactly.
you control their future. No one controls anyone's future in the IPL. So, and we could be wrong. He could play in the next 3 years, right? Like this could be, as you said, the next coming of Sachin. There haven't been many cricketers who have been ready for IPL level cricket at the age of 16, right? Like perhaps I'm going to go with two off the top of my head, Sachin and maybe Corey Anderson, right? Like guys who were, for whatever reason, like Corey Anderson was the same size he was at 16 as he was. And he probably bowled faster when he was 16 than he did by the time he got to seniors, and obviously could whack sixes. There aren't that many 16-year-olds who are ready for IPL cricket. We saw that with the young South African left-arm bowler, McVucker, last year, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
You know, he's a really talented player, but he's not ready. And we've seen that time and time
first
again.
over went for 20 or something in the IPL.
Yeah.
But this guy, he's got £100,000, Jarrod. 100,000 British pounds at the age of 13. What does that do for the kid?
Well, hopefully he's going to spend it really unwisely. I wouldn't say that. Jitesh Sharma, I hope, invests quite wisely into this money. Whereas this kid, I'm hoping he goes all in. I hope he buys like a gold-plated Xbox. Is Xbox still a thing? PlayStation 5, whatever. I hope he gets both of his nipples pierced with clown jewelry.
Finally got to nipples. No, like it's bad, isn't it? I mean, he can't go the computer game route because Ishan Kishan did that, and now he can't get in a team. I
like the Ishan Kishan signing, by the way, and I know you won't like it.
No, I don't mind it. I think again he's somebody that we know. The thing about Kishan is he can do it, right? You know Kishan can whack it, and if you can, presumably he's getting a bit older now, and you can keep him away from computer games for the evenings, or at least stop him playing through the middle of the night when he's got a game the next morning. He can play Kishan, and there's nothing wrong with having it compared to some of the signings. Kishan's definitely not on the bad list.
Shoaim has come in with a super chat. Many flaws of being among my many flaws of being an RCB fan. Has my team's auction picks this year changed that by any chance, or are there chances of winning this year as probable as me putting out a dumpster fire with my tears? I talked to Saurabh Samani. He really likes the RCB pickups. I think Virat Kohli and my worry is that Patidar is going to have to bat more sensibly, and I don't want him to bat more sensibly. I want him to be Patidar. I feel like Virat Kohli is going to have a year where he scores 800 runs. And just at the time when we were kind of pushing him to be a different kind of player, or pushing himself to be a different kind of player, that feels like a weird thing. They've got a lot of guys who I just have question marks over, but they have invested in bowling. The problem is that Rob doesn't like any of their bowlers. So
let's just run through RCB, right? We know Virat. I think Salt, absolutely excellent guy to have at the top of the order. Have no problem with paying 11.5 for him. I think they got Padikkal quite cheap. I don't think he should be starting for an IPL team because he hasn't shown any evidence whatsoever that he can score quickly. So you can't really have him anymore. Patidar, as you say, like this, let's say it's 3-4-5. It could be 4-5-6. Patidar, Jitesh, Liam Livingstone, right? Ignore Liam Livingstone's shocker of a season last season and watch. He got 50 off 15 yesterday in a game that was loads of absolute nonsense happening in. Liam Livingstone played that innings against the West Indies 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, that showed signs that Liam Livingstone might be developing brain cells, and that is a huge warning to the rest of cricket that if this guy can work out how to behave himself when he's playing cricket and not just try and hit every ball to the moon, he could be awesome. So Liam Livingstone, at the price he went for, actually isn't a terrible buy for 8.75 for RCB. I don't think that's a bad buy at all. The bad buys for me, the attack is going to be something like Krunal they overpaid for, 6 odd, 5.75 for him.
I'm okay with that.
He's not getting better, Jarrod, is he?
He's not. No, that's maybe fair. Maybe 4.5 I would have paid.
Bhuvaneshwar, 11. Already spoken about him. Nonsense. Hazelwood, 12.5. They've overpaid for these people. I'll tell you who is a great buy. And I think it's the person who is going to overtake Trent Bolt for being the best first over bowler in the world, and that is Thashara. His first ball is absolutely brilliant, and they got him for about 1.6 or something.
Yeah, I don't really.
I said last year he was going to. He wasn't quite ready for IPL last year because he hadn't played at a high enough level, and he didn't look. He was probably Mumbai's second best bowler, but it's Bumrah,
gap.
50 million miles above everybody else, then him, and then all the rest were absolute crap. But they've got Bethel. Like, Bethel could be anything. He's going to be...
I think if you have a look at it, they've got... Well, Bethel's an interesting one. They haven't spent a lot of money on him, and he in 3 years' time, he could be a really, really good player. So he's maybe already the best fielder in the world. So just put him on the boundary, right? They got Ngidi, Teixeira, Shepherd, Omazai, Bartlett for no money, right? Now there are two ways.
Omazai was Punjab. But
sorry. Sorry. I've gone on to
RCB.
my next list. Sorry, they got Ngidi, Teixeira, Shepherd for no money, right? Was the list, and I'm missing someone else that I did have on my list a minute ago.
Overseas, Shepherd, Teixeira, Bethel, and Geedy is basically their bench.
Yeah,
overseas bench.
And so I have a bit of a concern of how, again, they put together a bowling lineup, and they don't have a consistent batting lineup. I think they have a punchy batting lineup, right? So both sides of the ball worry me a little bit there.
I like their batting. I think Kohli, Salt, Patidar, Livingston, Jitesh, Tim David. Nothing wrong with that.
No,
like that's a good batting lineup.
Who's Tim David play for? Wait,
he's at RCB now.
Yes, sorry, he was the other one I meant. That was the other one I meant before, where you're not paying a lot of money for him, but he's another short, punchy batter. Like, do you know what I mean? They've gone with a type of batter, but they haven't really matched it with the kind of bowling team that I think you need to be able to do that with. But let's see anyway. Soham says, Zampa went for 2.4 and Sunrisers can fit him in every 11. Best bargain buy outside of McGurk going crazy. Think other teams missed a trick by allowing that. Yeah, Zampa's just gone out of fashion. Zampa's a fine bench player, and at 2.4, I wouldn't have any issue there. Rob, that's us done, though. Have you got any parting thoughts? I know you want to slag off the T10 league, but you can do that in personals because I have to go do another podcast now. So you're done.
Okay, stay well away from the Abu Dhabi T10 league if you're betting because they are all absolutely at it.
It's not a fun league. Did you see the LBW decision that was given out, and then the third umpire wasn't actually watching, and he didn't know why it had been reviewed? Just great cricket all round, everyone. Well done. This is Cricket 8. That is Rob Barron. I'm Jarrod Kimber, and we'll be back again very soon for more of this sort of thing. But later in the week, it will be Michelle and Mega. Remember to support us by subscribing and sharing, but also signing up at Cricket8. Remember to support us by subscribing and sharing, but also signing up at cricket8.com, where live scorecards cover 8,000 matches a year with advanced visual details that tell you who is actually in front in the game.